Yeah.
And Troy, in another moment of good copmanship, good cop personship, good copship,
Good policing.
good policing.
Welcome to Midsomer Maniacs. This is episode 3, Death of a Hollow Man.
Hey, maniacs.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mark.
So if we count the pilot as episode 1, this is the third episode
This
of
is the
Midsomer,
third.
but really is the official first season episode 2.
Yes, first season, episode 2.
The Razor episode.
The Death of the Hollow Man episode. So this was filmed in August and September of 97, which was right after the first episode, and then broadcast the 29th of March, 1998, so a week to the day after the first episode. This is, again, Caroline Graham book, but this is the second Barnaby book.
Ah, okay.
While last week's Written in Blood was like the third or fourth one. And the title probably comes from the T.S. Eliot poem, Hollow Men, which is not a happy poem. Well, it's T.S. Eliot, so it's not going to be happy anyway. But
Tiger, tiger, burning bright.
no, that's not T.S. Eliot.
It's not? Who's that?
That's
Blake.
Blake.
I'm
yes.
glad I have a PhD in English. So Eslen is the Hollow Man, yeah?
Yes, I
Yeah.
would say that Eslen's the Hollow Man. Eliot said that came from a combination of things. Other people says it's from Julius Caesar, but it's not. Eliot said that it was from Kipling and this other guy.
So this is a pretty low body count episode. There's only 2 murders,
It's
2
certainly
bodies.
probably one of our lowest body count episodes. And the next episode's a low body count too.
Yeah. There's kind of the extremes. There's episodes where there's like 1 or 2, and then there's like 12 million people have died. And one vicar killed them all, one at a time.
The entire village wiped off map.
And nobody noticed except Barnaby. We've got Barnaby and Troy back together again, of
Yes.
course.
So this is directed by Jeremy Silverstein, who directed the other ones, and written only by Caroline Graham.
Though we've got to give some credit to the author of Amadeus, since so much of that play is included in this episode.
Amadeus!
Assassin, assassin, assassin,
Assassin.
As always, if you haven't watched the episode recently, we recommend that you go and rewatch it, because there'll be references like assassin that you might not remember if you haven't seen it lately. And as usual, if you don't let your kids watch Midsomer, the podcast probably isn't appropriate for them either, but we're not going to drop F-bombs left and right or anything like that. So you're pretty safe. If your kids can handle a guy taking a razor to his own throat, they can handle being a maniac.
On stage, no less.
A maniac on stage? That makes me think of Insane Clown Posse.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
a maniac killer. I think I'm the only person on the face of the planet who has a PhD, likes Midsomer Murder, and likes Insane Clown Posse. Me, I'm unique.
If you like Midsomer, have a PhD, and like Insane Clown Posse, we need to hear from you.
Yes, you are my best friend, and I haven't even met you yet.
The episode opens in a very Morse-like way.
Yeah, it does. The cold open.
The title card happens, and we hear opera music. This is very
It's
common.
not opera. It's ecclesiastical
Yes.
music.
It's a very common Morse, Endeavor, Lewis trope
Yeah.
to start the episode like that.
It's Agnes Day is the song.
And we're introduced to Agnes Gray. Oh,
Coincidence?
See what we're doing there.
Interesting.
Who's looking at a holy relic and then gets bonked by a crowbar.
She gets hit by a crowbar.
That's true.
That's a very different
There's
scene.
no bonking in the crowbar.
That was a couple episodes ago, and there was no crowbar involved in. Somebody hits her from behind while she's kneeling and praying at the mother and child
And
relic.
the death sort of noise is not here, but in the recap later, when she gets hit, she...
Oof.
No,
There's
it's like
splattery.
there's like a noise. She cries out.
It's more of a bonking noise. but she's dying. Anyway, Agnes is in a dark place praying to the mother and child, and she gets
Crowbar,
killed.
back of the car, into the water.
And then it's like, never mind. Anyway, on with the rest of the episode, right?
So we're introduced to the Causton Theater Company. Now, this episode is not a village episode.
No.
It all happens in town.
Yeah.
And there's also no pub.
Still no pub.
Still no pub.
You're in pub withdrawal.
Aptly named pub will arrive soon.
Yeah, it will. So it's at the Corn Exchange Theater that most of the action happens, which is a relatively small theater. I think it probably seats, 50, 100 maybe, something like that. Yeah.
That's one of many trivia questions is what is the theater in Causton?
It's the Corn Exchange.
The Corn Exchange. And we're introduced to a whole bunch of players, including the players on the stage and the players behind the stage. We have Deirdre and David, who obviously like each other. Like 5 minutes in, you're like, oh, well, they should be doing something together.
So Deirdre is the stage manager.
And David is an actor as well as helping her.
Yeah.
He's very helpful.
He has white jeans.
He's very white.
He wears white jeans the whole episode when he's not in costume for the
I don't know
fight.
why his father's not mad at him for wearing white jeans.
Yeah, because his father's also involved. Yeah.
He's upset later because he's not dating people, but maybe the white jeans have something to do with it.
He also has a brown jean jacket.
Hopefully.
It's an outfit of its age.
Yep, it is. And then his father, Colin, and Tom Barnaby, are working on sets and getting props ready.
Because this is our first episode where Joyce's hobbies cause problems, right? Later, she water paints and goes to cookery classes and all kinds of other things.
One of many hobbies that lead to death.
Because Joyce doesn't have a job. She occupies herself.
She's in this production. Joyce is in the production, but she has no lines.
Right, but she's also helping out with costumes.
Yes, she's helping out with the costumes.
She's ironing them specifically.
Then we have Avery and Tim. Avery does the sets and Tim does the lighting. They're a gay couple who run a bookshop in town.
Called the Blackbird.
Yes, the Blackbird Bookshop. And then we have a number of actors, which include Kitty, who is Eslen's new wife. And we'll get to who Eslen is. We have Rosa, who is Eslen's old wife.
Yep.
Nicholas, who becomes a major player later on. He marries Cully.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
No, she marries somebody else. She marries a different guy.
No, she doesn't.
Yeah, so this is tapping into one of the things that I discovered. Because in my head, she also married Nico later.
No, she marries Nico.
No, she doesn't. Nico is only in one other episode. And it's the episode where he is studying for a police role in a TV show and follows Barnaby and Troy around for a day.
Well, then who the hell does Cully marry?
Somebody who looks a lot like Nico but isn't Nico. And we'll have to talk about it later.
Does he play Nico the character? Is it just is this a new Darren?
No, it's not a new Darren Bewitched situation. He's a completely different character.
Well,
and
then
I
I'm
pointed
an
out because I also had that alternate narrative in my head. I thought, ooh, this is exciting. Every time you see Nico and Cully together in a scene, there's like little, Tweety birds around their heads and stars and hearts floating around.
Love you.
Oh, and you think, oh, this is where they meet. But no.
Okay. Well, I'm wrong. I can fully admit when I'm wrong, and I guess I'm wrong. So
I was also wrong.
no, that's so. And then we have Eslen, who is the lead of the Amadeus, who is Salieri, because Nico plays Amadeus. And Eslen plays Salieri, and he is an accountant who thinks he's the greatest actor in the world. Also sort of changed in the old wife for the new wife. Kitty is 20 years younger than Rosa, maybe?
Probably. I would guess that Eslen is probably in his early 50s and Kitty is probably in her mid-20s.
So obviously, midlife crisis. He has a car with no top on it.
He has a wife with barely any top on it.
Yes.
And while we're talking about, we missed two very important members of the behind the stage set, which is Harold and Doris.
Well, yeah. So Harold and Doris are the Harold is the director and Doris is his wife. And we had to look because it is unclear what their relationship is.
Yeah, there's no reference to them being married in the episode itself. They do have the same last name, but he talks down to her so much and mistreats her so much that you might have thought maybe she was his little sister and they've lived together all this time.
She is the Amy Lydiard of this episode.
Yes, she is. But I checked
more
the book and everything else, and everything says that she is Mrs. Harold Winstanley. So,
and Harold is, well, he's a fatuous asshole. There's really no way around it.
So we learned pretty early on that he's in import-export. He's quite wealthy. He drives a very nice old car.
Lives in a big house.
Big house. But he also has some kind of history with the theater as well. He's really good for like dropping names of big historical theater people. Like he mentions
Peter Hall.
He mentions Peter Hall, who started the National Shakespeare Company.
And he kind of looks like Peter Hall.
Royal Shakespeare Company.
With the scarf.
The scarf and the hat.
I couldn't find a picture of Peter Hall without a scarf.
Yeah. And he makes reference to Sir John, which I think is probably Sir John Gielgud, right?
Probably.
And a couple of things. But so he's, wow, he is the most self-inflated character I think I've ever seen.
Now, I have a question for you. It is, let's see, what year is this? This is 1996, 97? 97. So it's 1998, it's broadcast. How much would you, Sarah, pay for a night of Amadeus? Now, it starts at 7:45. It runs Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and there's a show on Saturday.
How much would I pay for a ticket?
How much
Such
would
a
you...
nice, historical, intimate theater to see a performance of Amadeus. I would pay...
It's got to be 2 acts. There's an intermission.
Yeah, interval. I'd pay $20.
$20. At this time, the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday performances are £3.50.
What?
Which would be $8.
That explains why there's no really set.
Yeah.
There's no... Like, we see Barnaby early on painting this beautiful backdrop that's supposed to look like Vienna or something, and I don't think we ever actually see it on stage.
It's never on stage.
It's always just blackness.
But Saturday is £5.
They must make all their money at the concession stand like movie theaters do.
Now, one thing they do on the poster, is they have a phone number on the poster.
Okay. So you can call the ticket office and reserve your seats?
Yes.
Oh. High class.
I didn't call. I got too nervous. I didn't want to phone somebody and ruin their day.
Was it a 555 or something?
No,
like one of the fake numbers?
It's a British number. I don't think it's a fake number.
Oh.
Like in America, in North America, the 555 prefix code signifies to the phone company that it's a fake number.
Right. There are no real 555 numbers. Speaking of phone numbers, like the phone number on the flyer, the Midsomer Maniacs has a phone number, and you can find it in the description of the episode below. And if you ever have a comment or you want to do an impression of your favorite Midsomer character or something like that, we will be more than happy to play that in one of our future episodes. Maybe that will dissuade people from doing it. I don't know, but we would love to hear from you.
The number is 1-812-720-4594, and we can take texts and or voicemails.
Fancy and schmancy. Okay, back to the story.
Harold arrives at the theater. Where are my actors?
My actors.
Eslen and Kitty arrive. The thing I want to talk about here is how Eslen is being masked by Nico.
So they're going through a walkthrough of a scene. Eslen's in a chair as Salieri, and Nico as Amadeus is giving like a soliloquy, and he keeps accidentally walking in front of Eslen and blocking the audience's view of him in the chair.
And we learn Eslen is an accountant, and we learn that Nico, who I thought married Cully, but I was wrong, really feeds into the ego of
Harold
here. We find out that Kitty is pregnant and Rosa is upset. Is there a point where Rosa is not upset in the episode?
When she thinks she's given Eslen his comeuppance, she's rather pleased with herself.
But
for a small amount of time.
It's very short.
So Rosa is in the audience because she also has a part in the play. But she's doing some embroidery or something like that while she's waiting for her turn for the walkthrough. And Eslen and Kitty come in and they're late and they're all like so over the top and everything else.
Eslen pats Kitty's bum right in front of Rosa.
Definitely rubbing it in. Joyce comes out with Kitty's costume, wants her to try it on. It includes a pregnancy pillow to make Kitty look a little chubby. And Kitty says, well, soon I won't even need the pillow.
Kitty is
Which again is
rubbing
it in Rosa's face.
Yeah.
Cully marries a guy named Simon. I thought his name was Simon, but I wasn't sure. I looked it up.
That's right. I was completely wrong.
But he looks a little bit like Nico.
He does, but it's Simon. It's a completely different guy.
Yeah, he's a musician and everything.
Some kids find a dead body. They find Agnes.
Yeah, so we're in the theater, and then we just cut to two little kids on a little boat. And they're like fishing and splashing in a little pond.
There's a lot of direction, intercutting of scenes simultaneously.
Yeah, there's some sun dappling. Yep. And they find a body floating in the water. And of course, Tom gets called. Now, before we jump to that, though, we should also note that, of course, Cully has come home yet again.
Well, Cully's come home even more because
now we find later she's dropped out of school.
She's dropped out of Cambridge.
Yeah.
I don't know if my child.
She's come down.
Yes, come down from Cambridge. You know, your children are adults. Cully's an adult.
Yeah.
And she can make her own decisions. But as a father, I might want to have a 5-minute conversation about maybe going back to Cambridge.
I can only assume that with only one working parent and that parent being a civil servant, that it wasn't easy for them to send her to Cambridge.
Well, you see, in the United Kingdom, everything is free because they pay taxes.
No. It's not just free.
No, I imagine Cambridge is quite expensive.
Yeah.
So there's a crime scene, and Barnaby says this weird line where he doesn't know who she is, but he knows who she is.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Well, he recognized her.
He's seen her at the theater.
Yeah, he's seen her at the theater, but he doesn't know her, like, personally.
Okay. He doesn't know her, but he can identify her.
And her cousin, her dear sweet cousin.
Her only living relative.
Is
Eslen, the asshole.
Eslen. And she does some fantastic dead body acting here. Though I think, in this instance, they may stop the film.
Well, but you got to remember, there's also the scene of her underwater, and you clearly see her face, and there are no bubbles.
No, she
and the
does
water's
very well.
moving, so it's not a still.
She does very well with that also.
I think we should call him Eslen the accounting asshole now. Does that break our rule?
Yeah, kind of.
All right, so. I'll stop saying.
We find out Agnes had cancer. Troy and Barnaby are off to the house. They go the front door, then the back door, and then a monumental thing occurs. Barnaby pulls out a cell phone.
The first cell phone in
Midsomer.
Midsomer.
Cell phone in Midsomer.
And it's funny because when we were rewatching the episode, I wondered, because Tom's at the theater when they find the body, and they somehow reach him at the theater. And I asked, I wonder how they got him. I wonder how they knew where he was. Because before cell phones, if you were on duty as an inspector, they had to know where you were all the time. You'd have to call in and tell the control room where you were going so they could reach you.
You either that or you wore a beeper.
A beeper. A bleeper?
Bleeper.
A bleeper thing. A pager.
A pager.
So they get in the car, they go over to Agnes's house for the first time, and it's ransacked.
There's a part in that where Troy says the bastard cut her clothes. Okay, Harold is the killer.
Yeah, spoiler.
Why did he cut up her clothes?
I don't know. I can only think he's a maniac and not a good one like we are. He's a crazy person. Maybe he was trying to throw them off and make it look like it was a robbery or something, but she was found in a pond. That's not where she was killed.
Like she's wrapped in something, I think, like plastic or tied up in a rope or something.
I don't know, but it's
certainly
clearly
foul play right away.
Made to look like somebody has ransacked her place looking for something. but they can't figure out what that is. The neighbor says, "Oh, I thought she was off to Austria or something," because Agnes travels a lot. And then, they get back in the car. Troy comments on how Eslen responded to seeing Agnes in the morgue and how he was a cold devil.
Yep.
Because it's not like he's got a lot of affection for Agnes.
No, he doesn't. He calls her a loser.
Yeah.
And a plain little soul.
Yeah. Like, that's a nice thing to say.
A loser.
She was kind of a loser.
So they talk to Eslen more and find out she was into art history. She was retired from the BBC.
It sounds to me like she had a pretty interesting life.
But lonely.
Yeah, maybe she was lonely.
They go back to the house and find the weird situation that there's no beautiful things there. She's an art history major.
Yeah.
And then Troy, and I got to say, what?
No, go ahead.
I got to say, in this episode, Troy is the best cop that he's ever been.
Yeah. He's got his up moments in this episode, at least.
Because he says maybe she felt she didn't deserve nice things because she had no confidence.
That's pretty insightful.
And I'm like, way to go, Troy, in my notes.
Yeah. He's pretty smart.
So you were going to say something.
So then they get in the car and Barnaby says, "Do you want to have lunch?" Which might have been in a pub.
It could have been.
But they didn't.
Well, they slowed down near a pub.
Because Troy needs to buy a book for his mom's birthday.
And he goes to the Blackbird.
Yeah.
And Avery freaks him out.
Well, because Troy is so homophobic. It's like he thinks being gay can be transmitted through breath or something.
He scratches his neck like he's about to become gay-affected.
Yeah, like he's going to get cooties from the gay guy.
Gay cooties.
Which, to give Avery his credit, he seems to enjoy kind of taunting Troy and kind of rubbing it in. So Troy's mom is into some heritage Edwardian lady stuff.
Which I didn't understand either.
I tried looking it up. I couldn't find anything, but apparently she's already got all the books and the pot holders and the wall clock and everything else. So it must be like collector's items around a series of books.
I guess.
He ends up getting her a car vacuum even though she doesn't have a car.
So I have a question about Avery. Mm-hmm. And I mean
He's fantastic. He wears vests and bow ties.
I mean this sincerely. So 4 Weddings and a Funeral, one of the characters in that movie is gay. Well, 2 of them are gay.
Okay.
And he wears fantastic waistcoats.
Mm-hmm.
Is fantastic waistcoats and bow ties, because he also wears bow ties, an actor that appears in Midsomers in the future? Mm-hmm. Is that the gay uniform in the 90s in England?
Or is it like code?
I don't want to say code, but is it code?
Well, the costume people are making that decision, so they must think, if I put this character in a fancy waistcoat and bow tie, people will know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, he's a gay.
Right away.
Well, Troy doesn't need to see it.
No.
Troy reacts so extremely. I had to rewind one part because I could have swore I saw Troy wipe his hand off after touching something in the bookstore. He didn't, but I wouldn't have put it past him.
He is clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Then we go back to the police office and find out a little bit more about Agnes because she had a key around her neck.
A key to something.
A key to something.
Big padlock.
Yeah, they don't know what, though.
Don't worry. They'll forget until, like, almost the end of the episode.
Yeah, because, it's just the first murder. It happens in the cold opening, so we don't have to think about it again until, later. So you've already talked about Eslen's office and them going and talking to him and her working for the BBC and everything, but there's something about Eslen's office that I need to know. And if any of the listeners have an idea, please share it, okay?
It's always a good moment in a Midsomer in which one of us says, "What the hell is that thing?"
Rewind. Go back. When you're in Eslen's office looking at Barnaby and Troy from Eslen's point of view, his office is in kind of like a Tudor conversion. There's a lot of exposed woodwork on the inside, including some pretty low rafters. And there's a rafter that is kind of immediately in front of his desk. And it's just above Tom and Troy's heads.
And on the rafter.
On that rafter is a linear camshaft.
Exactly.
So a camshaft is like it's if you could imagine like a cylinder that has a series of gears or cams on it that are different shapes and sizes and are in different positions, so that as it turns, if something is riding on it, it would move up and down or back and forth, right?
I guess.
So
I'm not the most mechanically minded person.
I am. So old looms had camshafts that drove the heddles up and down.
But this is clearly from a car.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only explanation I can think of. And camshafts of that kind aren't real popular in cars because they're not as reliable with movement. I don't know. If it's from a car, that's great. He does obviously like cars. Maybe somebody can tell us. But it took me quite a while to identify what that thing was.
So we have a question.
And why would you put a heavy metal thing right above people's heads? I don't know.
That's roundish.
That could easily roll.
So we have a question. If you're living in the UK and you have an accountant and you've gone to their office, do they have a camshaft?
And a secretary who they run out of the office on short notice. You can have the rest of the day off. My boss has never busted in my door and said, you can have the rest of the day off.
No.
No, never happened.
Back at Agnes's house, they start going through her mail. Troy finds gold.
Yeah, the donkey letter.
He goes...
It's a letter with a donkey on it.
He goes, it's a letter with a donkey on it. Barnaby's like, I'm working with a child here.
But
and
then
so
Troy reads it.
starts to read the letter, and we find out that Agnes has given £150,000
to a donkey sanctuary.
to a donkey sanctuary. And the donkey sanctuary on the letter is entitled The Donkey Sanctuary.
Well, what are they going to call it?
I don't know.
The ass
Quentin's
house
donkey
or something? They could.
Avery's ass house.
There you go.
There you go.
Do they all wear bow ties and vests? So she clearly has way, way more money than they had assumed that she has. Because she lives in these really modest rooms and yet has 150 grand to give to donkeys.
And the letter actually says, thank you for another donation.
Yeah, like she's given him that much before.
The next couple of scenes all meld together in that kind of intercutting thing.
Yeah.
Right? We have Eslen going to the lawyer.
He leaves Kitty behind to go to the lawyer.
Kitty is at the house who has a friend over.
Yeah. So while he's at the lawyer, she has somebody over in bed.
And Rosa is outside creeping.
Yeah.
Her and Laura creeping around the neighborhood. Is this a middle-aged woman thing in England to be creeping? Because...
I'm getting close to middle age and I don't feel the need to creep. It's not calling to me.
We've had 2 episodes in which we have creeping middle-aged women.
Well, they're nosy.
I guess.
And they want to know something. So that's how you do it. So Rosa starts out by just kind of spying. But then when she sees Kitty in the window, clearly wrapped in a sheet, because that's what you do. If you're having an affair, go to the window semi-naked.
There's a couple of things we got to go through, right? So Rosa is creeping, and you're like, that's kind of strange. And then she goes up to Kitty's car and starts keying it. Now, when she keys the car, the first time we don't see the key. We see the key, but we don't actually see it on the car.
Right.
We hear the sound. And I was like, oh, okay. They obviously didn't key the car. They just added the sound effect. The next thing we see with Rosa and the car is her actually keying a letter into the car. It's not the same car.
Well, you don't see the whole car in that scene. It may just be the side of a car.
It's the side of some car.
One panel that's been well painted that she's scratching. But she's clearly scratching some letters into it. You got the sound and everything.
She looks up and sees Kitty, who has come to the window in a sheet.
Yeah.
Now,
a floor-to-ceiling window on the front of the house, the street-facing side of the house.
I'm not a woman.
No, you're not.
I'm not a woman. But I would never do that. And Rosa notices that she has company.
Yeah, because some hands reach around her and kind of pull her back into the room. So now Rosa's got the dirt.
Meanwhile, Eslen is at the lawyer's office being all high and mighty that he's not going to get anything because he only has 2 legs and no tail.
Yeah, because Agnes is known for caring about animals more than people. So no question that her will leaves all of her money to these animal charities. But she has left a letter behind a package for Eslen that says that it's to be opened after her death.
I think the lawyer buries the lead here. Like, should he not be giving that right away?
That's what lawyers do.
I guess.
Especially in will readings. You know? They don't have a lot of drama. He probably got
Freaks Eslen out. He runs back to his office.
Kicks his PA out.
The PA out and starts looking at the documents, which are obviously spreadsheety.
Yeah, it's like a bank statement.
Speaking of banks, Troy and Barnaby learn that over the last couple of years, Agnes has put £86,000 through her bank.
Right.
This is $2 million in real money.
There's this interesting conversation with Tom and Troy as they're walking away and talking about how Agnes gave all of her money to these animal charities. And Troy is like, why would you give it all to animals, you know? And Barnaby's like, well, everybody needs something to love.
And animals love you back.
Yeah. Troy says, I wouldn't fancy cuddling up at night to a Cocker Spaniel. And Tom says, don't knock it before you try it. Which is weird. And he doesn't like animals in the house. We know from the last episode he's allergic.
He doesn't like animals. But based on what you researched, who is Troy actually cuddling at night?
Oh, yeah. So this is so weird. Book adaptations, they always have to make changes from the book. They can't follow the plot exactly. But in the books, and especially in this book, we see a lot of Troy's wife.
What?
Maureen.
Oh, it's not a good name.
No. Like, she goes to the play with him and everything. And she's a number. She's interesting. She's just about as crass as he is. It's like Troy in a dress.
And isn't there something like with Cully or something?
Yeah, she thinks that Troy has eyes for Cully and nags at him about it.
In the end, Eslen calls up the murderer.
Yeah.
And says, I don't want to say murder, but murder.
Yeah.
And then puts the document on a floppy. So it's on a computer disk. Then he gets rid of the other copy.
He shreds the paper copy.
Which I don't really understand why he did that or had to do that.
It's evidence.
I guess.
Agnes has left for him these documents only to be opened after she's dead that reveal transactions that she feels guilty about.
Now, she thought she was going to die of cancer.
Yeah.
She didn't think she was in danger of being murdered.
Right. She didn't do it for that reason. It wasn't like, if I'm found dead, open this letter, right? You get the sense that maybe she left it to him because she felt bad and guilty, and he's an accountant, so he would see those statements and he would understand.
Oh, he understands right away.
Oh, yeah, and then uses it to blackmail somebody.
I'm not going to say murder, but murder.
Yeah. He gives him until Monday. In this episode, you
the days
never know what day it
screwed
is.
Up.
Yeah, you never know what day it is in this episode, yeah.
The time and the days are all screwed up. Eslen goes home.
Then
Crazy Kitty is in the bathtub, and Rosa calls him and dishes on Kitty.
Yeah, she's singing opera, and the actress has a really great voice.
I have a note here that I wonder if Rosa can sing.
Yeah,
she sings La Boheme.
Yeah, she's a trained singer. So she calls him, and the whole idea is that she's telling Eslen that Kitty's having an affair in hopes of getting him back. I don't know why she would want him back. He's horrible, but she's kissing his photo and all that stuff. But then the next time we see Kitty, he's kicking her out, and she has a bruise on her face.
And he's hit her.
Yeah.
Let's cover this.
I already called him Eslen the accounting asshole, but now he's abusive too.
He's abusive. He dumped one wife for a younger woman. And really, the crux of what Rosa has a problem with is she always wanted a child, and Eslen never said he wanted to have a child.
Yeah.
And then Kitty's magically pregnant.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Is she?
It's not magically pregnant. We know exactly how she
pregnant? I don't know that she is. We see her smoking and drinking and everything else.
She indeed does a lot of smoking and drinking.
Then Tom and Troy get a call from a friend of Agnes. Her name's Peggy Marshall, who was kind of her church mentor. So we learned that Agnes joined the Catholic Church fairly recently, which is pretty late in life, which is not uncommon. People find out they're terminally ill, they turn to religion. You know, they make this big scene out of Peggy basically saying she was guilty about something, but I don't know what. That's
a
all we
long
learned from
scene.
her.
It doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
It also is implied in a couple of scenes through there that Nico is having the affair with Kitty because we don't see who it has.
Yeah.
We know it's a man and he has a hand.
Yeah.
That's all we know.
Well, and Tim and Avery joke about how Nico's never around and he's always slipping in and out of the bookshop. So they think maybe he's having an affair with somebody. And so it's natural to assume that maybe it might be Nico. He's young and handsome, but it's not.
I want to put something else out there. In the shop and in the lighting booth, Tim and Avery are drinking almost constantly.
Yeah, but they also have really good food.
They do have very good food, but they're drinking constantly.
Every time Avery opens up a hamper and offers Tim some food, I'm like, oh, that sounds good. I want some of that.
Opening night.
Yeah. Okay. So
this is
forget
Thursday.
Agnes.
This is Thursday.
I thought it was Wednesday. It was opening night.
No, it's Wednesday. You're right. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday opening night.
Yeah. So forget Agnes. Of no importance anymore right now.
Harold's in the front trying to be a host at front of house.
Darling, how lovely to see you. Sold out as usual.
But it's always all about him.
Oh, gosh. He's so senile. He's crazy.
Deirdre's father comes.
Mr. Tibbs.
Mr. Tibbs. And it's mentioned that he was out directing traffic at Badger's Drift.
Yeah. He doesn't even know that area. The great thing about Mr. Tibbs is that he shows up and he just wants to wish everybody good luck. He's clearly senile.
In his pajamas.
Yeah, and he's got his striped pajamas on underneath his jacket and pants.
He's a very positive guy.
Yeah, he wishes everybody good luck.
Eslen calls Nicholas.
Yeah.
Because he thinks Kitty
he's
and
having
him.
an affair with him. Yeah.
And Kitty and Nicholas are having an affair. There's one thing, it bothers me. It's stupid. I don't know why it's even in there. Nicholas is a theater person. He wants to go to drama school. He's beyond high school age.
Yes.
And he drops a Scottish play reference, which he would have known all that.
He would have known it was bad luck. If he's been in any theater, he would have known it was bad luck, to quote Macbeth.
I don't even know why it's there.
And saying that Eslen is too full of the milk of human kindness isn't even a good fit. Like, it's not even a good line to quote at that point.
But it gives a chance for that guy who's playing King Leopold or whatever.
With the eyebrows drawn on.
With the eyebrows drawn on. He has a couple of good lines.
Yeah.
There. He's not a bad actor.
Yeah.
Troy and Cully meet.
Yes. Barnaby introduces them. They've never met before.
And Troy tries to sit with Cully and Barnaby, but he can't sit with them.
Well, he's got a seat first, and he assumes they're going to sit down next to him,
Yes.
and then they go a couple rows down and sit in center.
And he's kind of like, oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, well, because he should be sitting up there with his wife.
I guess.
So there's in all of Harold's like meeting and greeting, there's a scene where he's talking to this little old woman who looks so much like the Queen. Did you notice
Yes,
her?
I did notice her.
Easily, that woman can pretend to be the Queen at public events.
They wish...
What is verissimo?
Yes, they wish Joyce to...
Break a leg and a neck.
Break a leg and a neck? I didn't know that was a phrase. And once again, Joyce is a crone. How many times is Joyce a crone in this show?
She does tend to play that part when she's in some kind of theater.
Nico and Cully run into each other in stairs. Oh, hearts, stars, happiness.
And Kitty tells Rosa how awful Eslen said it was to be married to her. Just rubbing it in because they're both upset now. Well, Kitty's upset because she's getting dumped and Rosa's happy.
So a couple of things. So the play starts. Assassin. At the interval, Barnaby looks after Deirdre's dad.
Yep,
He's
goes
so
to get him a
nice.
cup of coffee. He's a good
so
guy.
Nice.
It's clear that though Causton is a bigger city than the villages that are included in the show, that he's well known, especially among the theater people. They all know him as Tom.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And Troy shows he's kind of a country copper here, though, because he's like, I'm not used to going to the theater.
He's never been to the theater
Never
before.
been to the theater before. And Cully's like, this is not theater.
Yeah, this isn't really theater. Though we've got a couple scenes with Tim and Avery and their good sandwiches and there's a light out. But then...
Eslen's so mean to Kitty on stage. He is mean to Nico on stage. This is all setting up red herrings,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
They have this meeting backstage that Eslen's out of control.
Well, because he clearly is. He's got a role that is supposed to be powerful and yet ages dramatically throughout the play and then becomes somebody who has no power.
Sort of like himself,
Exactly.
a hollow man.
So I think it's coming home to him. So he turns his ring around and shakes Nico's hand on stage really deeply. He overacts with Kitty and shoves her to the ground and is really rough with her, which the theater troupe all know isn't part of the play. He's not supposed to do that.
Kitty is roughed up, hit, smokes, and drinks. This is going to be a tough pregnancy, if there is a pregnancy.
I don't think she's pregnant. I want to go back just a second.
Okay.
To the meet and greet before the play starts.
Okay. So there's Harold, the queen.
Yeah. So, but in the book, there's this. Well, in the book, Doris is much more put together.
Oh, we haven't even started talking about Doris.
I mean, Doris is obviously very mousy and okay, Harold. You know, like she's clearly browbeaten and I mean really sad. But in the book, she's a little bit more put together. But she does have that horrible cardigan on. But they don't make any reference to that. What is it? A net that's on her head? That awful
I don't know.
Whatever that.
Is she cooking in a fry shop later?
It's like a veil, but only goes down to her eyebrows or something. Anyway, in the book, Doris meets Cully for the first time. Or no, for the second time. And I just thought this was great because we keep joking kind of about how Cully's dropped out of college and all this stuff. But in the books, she is so much more rebellious. We had the line about the green hair and tattoo.
Yeah.
In the episode before. When Doris meets Cully, she's struck by how different Cully looks. Because the last time she met, and I quote, she met Barnaby's daughter, the child had sported a green and silver crest of hair, was covered in black leather, and hung with chains.
This is a different Cully. I kind of am interested in that
like,
other
was
Cully.
She punk Cully?
Punk Cully.
I guess. But now she's dressed in something much more fashionable and kind of cute, and her hair's black, very dark black.
And not blonde.
Not blonde at all.
Blonde.
Not blonde at all.
Salieri's death scene.
Yeah. If you remember anything about this episode, if it's been a while since you've seen it, this is what you remember.
So the idea is that there is a razor, a straight razor, that is covered in tape.
Scotch tape. Transparent
Don't say
tape.
Scotch tape.
Transparent tape.
Transparent tape. Because Scotch tape is a slur.
It's not our sponsor.
Sticky tape. And the idea is that will make it safe so he can run it across his neck
and pretend to die.
The razor has been switched. There's no tape on the blade. And Eslen kills himself.
On stage.
In
front of a packed audience.
In front of Joyce and David.
And the audience, yeah.
And Joyce does some great acting here. She freaks out.
You're not supposed to look out at the audience, you know? And she's playing a silent character who's supposed to be standing meekly behind Salieri. She's his cook. And then that happens. And I remember the first time I saw this episode, way, way back, I felt that moment of panic.
Yeah.
It is one of the worst deaths in Midsomer. And that's saying something.
And really affects Joyce.
And it's he kills himself, right? There's not somebody there stabbing at him, which would be horrible. But the fact that he does it to himself, not knowing.
And there's that look of realization in his eyes after he's done it.
Yeah.
And they do a very good job of not showing anything.
Right. Because
there's not a crowd shot with
blood spurting out, right? With their effects budget, they couldn't have done it realistically. But in the book, it's very clear that she knows exactly where Tom is sitting. She says, what seat are you in? And he says, I'm in like C1. And she's like, good, I'll know not to look there. Like, because she doesn't want to get nervous. But at that moment, when she realizes what's happened, she turns out to the audience, like mutely at first. And it's clear she's looking for Tom.
And
then she screams.
Tom jumps into action. And Troy does immediately too. Mm-hmm. Troy, again, this is Troy's best police performance.
Yep.
He is on the case right away. And he gets there and shuts the curtain, which to me, for somebody who's never been to the theater, He sure knows where the curtain goes.
I think anybody who knows what a theater is knows where the curtain goes. There are pulleys. I mean, he was in school, remember? In the book, the razor it's described so well. Can I read this a little bit to you? Eslen lifted the razor and with one dramatic sweep, drew it across his throat. It left a bright red line. He stood for a moment, frowning down at the blade, unexpectedly scarlet. So he has this like, huh? It's that moment, right?
Because it's so sharp.
You probably wouldn't feel it.
Yeah.
He swayed forward, then jerked himself upright as if with a great effort. The keeper of the cakes, that's Joyce, bustled cheerfully on with the breakfast tray. Salieri took a step to meet her. She stared at him, her mouth shaped in a silent O. Then she dropped the tray and caught him as he fell. Then she screamed. Shrieks of pure terror, over and over again, while the bright blood flowed over her snowy fichu and dove-gray skirt onto the boards beneath.
Joyce, in the book, is covered in blood.
Covered, because she catches him in her arms. It's an ingenious death.
Yeah.
It's a dramatic death that sticks with you.
For all his nutsy bobo-ness, Harold does a good job at killing him.
Yeah. And then blames him for ruining his play. How dare he? While we're on the razor, though, it's funny because I've got a Google alert set up for Midsomer, and we both follow the Midsomer subreddit. Hello, Redditors out there. We love you. There was a story a few years ago in New Zealand. Some kids were putting on a production of Sweeney Todd, and you think they would have seen the Midsomer or something.
The razor in that case was supposed to have been taped.
Yeah, they thought some duct tape was going to do it or something. So a couple of the kids were injured, but one of the kids actually had his throat slit 5 centimeters deep. His trachea was exposed. Can you imagine seeing your kid on stage and that happening to your kid? What happened to Eslen on stage? Geez. Okay, so just a tip. If you're going to produce Amadeus or Sweeney Todd or any other theater production which happens to involve a razor, like if you're doing West Side Story and the Jets have their razors out, they can be fake. It's okay. We forgive you.
I'm okay with that.
I'm going to suspend my disbelief and not notice that they're plastic. That's all right.
I'm completely fine with that. And health and safety is also completely fine with that.
Yep. Don't use real razors on stage, kids.
Poor Mr. Tibbs stumbles out of the theater.
Oh, he makes a run for it. Blood of the lamb.
Blood of the lamb. He's just a big red herring in his striped pajamas.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
And everybody's insisting there was tape on the blade. There was tape on the blade, which I'm saying tape was not enough, people. Like the whole time they're insisting that there was tape. Who took the tape off? I'm thinking, why did you rely on tape to begin with? I digress.
Harold is so annoying backstage.
It's the typical, everybody here has to stay put until we've talked to all of you scene, right? In lots of mystery shows. Everybody gets impatient, waiting their turn to give a statement, whatever. But Harold is so obnoxious. He can't even stand that Barnaby talks to anyone before him.
Including his friend,
Yeah.
Colin Sim.
Yeah.
And he goes, there's one thing I can't stand. It's high-handedness.
Ring, ring, it's pot calling kettle. Down in the green room, when everybody clears out because they've been told they can go home and give a statement tomorrow, Harold's like, I elect to be seen now. And he sits down and he says, well, Tom, it was like this. And he stands up and Tom is gone.
Yes.
Tom has no time for his bullshit.
None of it. Now, Nico goes and helps Joyce home with Cully.
Well, Harold felt a sinister frisson in his production from the beginning. Because you did it.
You are the sinister frisson.
Yeah. Well, he's more than a frisson. Yeah, so Deidre's run off to go find her dad, and some police help her track him down, and he climbs the top of the senior center or whatever and gets scared and jumps off. The stuntman they have that plays him in the jump looks nothing like him.
Completely different person.
Like they didn't even try to find somebody of similar height.
Now, the two constables, it's a man and a woman. Mm-hmm. I noticed that.
Yeah.
and there's two of them, while later a constable that comes out to bust Troy is just one.
Yeah, he's on his own.
It's just on his own.
Yeah, well, they're looking for somebody at night, right? So they go in pairs.
I guess so.
Doris is sleeping in the audience, waiting for Harold. I love it. She gets startled, and she kind of startles awake and goes outside to follow him, and he's gone.
He just drives away.
He left her.
How did she get home? How does Doris get home?
They ask a constable.
Oh, that's right. He asked a
home.
constable.
Yeah.
Because Tom is a wonderful person.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe Harold just leaves her behind. I felt so bad for her. Now, do you remember when you first saw this episode, who you suspected, and did you think it was Harold from the beginning, or were you fooled by any of the red herrings? Can you remember?
I can't really remember this episode because I think I was doing something else, because Eslen's death is 50 minutes in.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I'm getting kind of tired waiting for another death.
Yeah, you're like, murder, come on. It's called Midsomer Murder.
And then all of a sudden that happens. And it's so
yeah, it's such a shocking death.
And I was like, what did I miss through the whole 50 minutes of boredom before this?
So the first time I saw this episode, it was long after it had aired for the first time. And it must have been after 2004, actually, because I had this creeping suspicion that it was Doris the whole time. Well, until we kind of get to this point where Harold kind of ditches her, I always thought she's not as kooky as she pretends to be. She's up to something. And when we rewatched it, I was trying to figure out why I had thought that. And the reason I know that I must have seen this episode for the first time after 2004 was the same actress who plays Doris, whose name is Angela Pleasance, who's the daughter of
Donald Pleasance. From Halloween. And every other movie in the 80s.
Yeah. She's in this great Poirot that Tim Curry is in as well. Which one is it? Appointment with Death. And in that Poirot, she plays this nanny who's also very mousy, very quiet, very shy. But then you learn through the episode that she has been at the order of her mistress torturing children, almost drowning them, beating them with sticks. I mean, doing really heinous things to them. And I hated that character so much in that Poirot that it stuck with me. So when I saw the same actress kind of playing the same kind of mousy, quiet part, I just thought she's a bad guy.
It must have been.
But I had to kind of think it through, where did I know her from? And it's from that darn Poirot. Mm. But I suspected her that she didn't do it.
She didn't do it. Everybody gets interviewed, and...
Well, and Troy, again, in one of his smart cop moments in this one, when he's discussing the possibilities with Barnaby the next day, he says, well, maybe Kitty did it. And Tom's like, well, why do you think that? And she says, well, because they know that he was going to divorce her and she was having an affair.
Which is a valid line of argument.
Absolutely. It makes her a suspect. Well, she could have killed him at home, but then it would have looked like a domestic and she would have been a suspect right away. So she does it this way. She throws shade on everybody else.
Again, well thought out.
And Barnaby says, good point. And Troy has this look on his face I did make a good point. He looks surprised that he might have figured something out. Poor Troy.
And then he says it may be Kitty's fancy man.
Fancy man.
Which already Barnaby thinks
is Nico.
Yeah. So everybody thinks that Kitty and Nico are doing it.
Yeah.
Everyone gets interviewed, including the gay guys, at the bookshop with Troy.
Troy gets sent there by himself and practically shoves his badge down their throats.
And they just make saucy gay jokes at him.
Yeah. They basically taunt him, which he deserves at that point.
It comes to, where is Colin's Smythe?
Yes.
So they go to Colin's house.
Colin, who is the older man, who's the father of David, who's in the play, and Colin is the one that Tom is painting the scenery with early on. He's kind of a non-entity, if you don't remember that.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, but he's just not a critical character.
And he confesses to the murder.
Yeah.
And Troy, in another moment of good copmanship, good cop personship, good copship.
good policing.
Good policing is like catches him in a lie.
Yeah.
Because he says he flushed the tape.
Yeah. And the tape from the razor, and Troy says, we tried that, it floats. So now I have this image of Troy in a toilet, like tearing off pieces of tape from a roll and dropping them in and flush. No. Let's try again. No. Because I don't think there was a forensic succo guy, off to the side trying to flush tape. So, meanwhile, poor Joyce is at home, just still in shock. Cully's taking care of her. She's really, really beside herself over this.
Let's finish off Colin. Colin confesses.
Yes.
They know it's not true. David comes home.
It's clear he's confessing on behalf of somebody else.
David's coming home. Barnaby figures out that Colin is protecting David because Colin saw David doing something at the props table.
Yeah.
And what he did was he put Vim, which is caustic.
It's like...
It's Ajax. It's
which is like Comet, right? Like an abrasive thing that you scrub the sink with or something?
Ajax, Vim, and Comet are relatively the same thing.
Yeah, so he sprinkled that on the cakes that Salieri has to eat on
this
stage.
This is poison.
Yeah, but it's not very much. It doesn't kill him.
So it comes out, and Troy really has a great exit line again.
Yeah, because it's clear there's like nothing to do here. These two are not guilty.
Don't do it again. All right.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, what my boss said.
So then they go and interview Kitty, and the interview is completely irrelevant. She says some things, but good Lord, what the hell does she have on? It has letters and words that I think are in French, but it's see-through, and there's a bra part, and then a miniskirt.
Yeah. It's clearly like, funeral widow chic.
But so this is the next day. There's no funeral yet.
No, but she's in mourning. She's wearing her widow's weeds.
Yeah, but she's just sitting around at home. Why is she not in sweats and a t-shirt?
Because she's not really sad.
Well, I guess so.
She has a black handkerchief.
But why put on sort of posh, sleazy clothes?
Because she's got to look good.
I guess.
He's a cheeky bugger.
Yes, she calls Troy a cheeky bugger. They feel it's a waste of a day.
Yeah.
But it's not a waste of a day because they got rid of a whole bunch of suspects, leaving really only a few, mostly one's named Harold.
Yeah. Then Tom gets a random phone call.
From the chip van man with the awesome bacon sandwiches.
Yeah.
Because they found the vehicle.
Because remember, there's another body.
Yes, Agnes. Oh, that's right. We've arrived at the almost end of the episode.
The return to Agnes.
Barnaby gives Troy the key and says, look at all these garages.
The key that was around Agnes's neck that all this time they knew was for some kind of padlock or something, but they had no evidence of where that might be. While
you're going to do that, I'm going to sit in the car and read the paper and eat my bacon sandwich.
Well, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Have your lackey go do it.
But Troy, in all his excellent policing in this episode, has forgotten how keys and locks work.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those bad TV infomercials where somebody's purposefully doing something awful to make a product look good, It's like he takes the key and waves it at the lock and is like, why is this not working? It won't work. Go to the next one.
So then a cop shows up.
Trying a bit of breaking and entering, sir.
And this is the UK and this is the 90s because Troy reaches in his coat, which any cop would immediately go, stop.
Well, but remember, that cop doesn't even have a gun. So what's he going to say? Stop again?
Stop,
if Troy's whipping out a weapon?
Or I'll say stop again. So Troy takes out his warrant card and then the constable comes and they find the religious artifact. But they open the garage and on the back of the garage door is...
blood splatter.
Blood splatter. And they walk right past it.
I think Barnaby almost puts his hand in it because they kind of push the garage door open and there's like this big splatter of blood. They've never known where Agnes was killed. Clearly she was transported to the water and dumped in the water. Clearly she wasn't killed in her apartment. They've checked it. There's no evidence there that she was killed there. So,
I'm surprised they didn't find a monogrammed crowbar with Harold's name on
a bonking crowbar?
A bonking crowbar.
I'm kind of surprised that they didn't open the door, see the blood, and say, stop. We need to call Sacco. We shouldn't go in there. There might be evidence.
You think?
But that would have slowed down the episode, right? So they go in and they find the effigy. They find the mother and child.
And they realize that she's dealing in stolen artifacts.
Yeah. Which explains the spreadsheet, which explains the money, which explains the donkey donations.
Which is why eventually Barnaby puts it together. Troy says they need heavy freight to move this. And Barnaby's like, import, export. Because in the very first scene where Barnaby and Joyce are talking.
The first scene with dialogue.
They're talking. They mention that Harold's an import exporter and he's doing well.
In passing. Don't forget, though.
It's a clue, Scoob.
While Barnaby is at the garage finding the effigy, Cully's at home making a grocery list with shocked Joyce. And we learn for the first time, though we will hear it again, Barnaby likes chunky marmalade.
Chunky marmalade. At first I thought it was peanut butter, but then I remembered the marmalade.
Yeah, because he likes marmalade.
Yeah.
And relish.
Yes.
We hear about the relish later.
Relish
in another
later.
episode. Oh, so she'll be all right. She'll be fine. Cully goes off, and we go back to the bookshop.
Well, she goes off on a date.
Well, she says she's going to go to the grocery store, but she might stop by the Blackbird on her way.
To see Nicholas.
Nico. So we go to the bookshop.
Yeah.
Where Harold may give his most over-the-top performance.
As Dracula's mother. Avery makes a good joke
Yeah,
there.
he says, oh, great, here comes Dracula's mother.
No, it's Tim that says that.
Oh, Tim, yeah. They want to lock him out, but they know that he won't go away, so they let him in. We learn that Nico's got a place in drama school, and they're really excited, and Harold has just gotten a lease on a new theater, and he thinks that the world's opening up to him again.
So if Nico's not having an affair with Kitty, who is?
Tim?
Tim.
Some call me
Tim plays for both teams.
Well, we knew that already. Because unlike Avery, he wasn't making sequin jockstraps for Paddington when he was a little boy.
Yeah, we skipped over the sequin jockstrap for Paddington. If you have a picture of a sequin jockstrap on Paddington, I will gladly repost that picture.
Yes, because it would be fabulous. The question is, does it go over or under the coat? Sometimes I ask questions that you just don't know how to answer.
I just think of Paddington opening up the coat and then...
Then we get that great scene of, because Kitty's getting rid of Eslen's clothes, right? Because she doesn't miss him. She's not sorry to see him go. And she finds the floppy disk.
In her couture wear. Again.
Yeah. She finds the floppy disk in the
and
pants
she has
pocket
no
or
idea
jacket
what
pocket.
that floppy disk is.
She doesn't know what it is. But it was in the jacket that he had on most recently.
No,
so.
I don't think she doesn't know what's on it. I don't think she knows what it is.
Yeah. Like what a disc is?
Yes.
Like, what do you think the label says? Like, evidence or Agnes's bad things or blackmail
Proof that Harold is guilty.
Yeah. Harold murder proof. Anyway, she clearly realizes that it's
.exe.
Yeah, that it's evidentiary, and she goes to the police station. But Tom and Barnaby are just leaving. She tries to get their attention, so she waves it.
She waves it like, look what I have. But she doesn't say anything.
No, they're long gone. So she slips it through the mail slot, but they do find it, so it's okay.
It's weird. She slips it through the mail slot of a busy police station.
Which it would probably get stepped on, and
you would think.
And then Barnaby tells all moment where he recounts the entire crime to Troy on the way to
This is where we hear
Harold's.
Agnes's death yell.
Yeah, her crowbar bonking.
At the same time, poor Doris finds the razor
in the medicine cabinet
while she's cleaning with Ajax. This episode brought to you by Vim and Ajax.
We know that Harold had a second razor. And the way he accomplished giving a non-taped razor to Eslen, because they always assumed that somebody would have to be backstage with like a Stanley knife or something, scraping off the tape. And
not flushing it.
Right, because it would float. It would be difficult to remove it, so it would take a few minutes, and somebody would be seen doing that. But Harold's not done that. He's got a second razor. So he swaps the razors ahead of the interval, And then he is able to take the tape off at his leisure and then swaps it back. But then he goes home and takes the duplicate razor and puts it in the medicine cabinet.
Just 'cause.
Well, if you actually used a straight razor to shave with, I would expect it to be in your medicine cabinet. But Doris clearly doesn't expect to see a razor in the medicine cabinet.
No.
She fumbles it and basically knocks everything out of the medicine cabinet.
As he comes home.
Which gets Harold's attention, so he knows something's up because he knows that's where he's put it.
And he attacks her with the razor, and it's scary.
It is scary. She's trapped in a bathroom. There's no way out. He's between her and the door. He has a razor, and all she has is her ugly sweater.
But this is the second episode in a row where crazy person with edge weapon attacking mousy person upstairs in big house.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a pattern here.
But Harold doesn't go diving out the window.
No. He does cut her, though.
Yeah. She defends herself with her arms, which I can only imagine if that was actually a sharp razor, that would be some real damage.
It would be real damage. Thankfully, she has her sweater and her pot holders.
Wow. Somebody could do a fashion line of Doris's ugly sweaters, but it would have to come with that thing she wears on her head.
With the hair net.
Yeah.
So Harold kind of enters a fugue state here where he thinks, he's like, oh, Tom, you're here.
Yeah, he snaps in and out of that kind of craziness to his fantasy world where everything's fine.
And he needs his hat because the press is down.
He just has to have gotten rid of anybody who was in his way. They were pesky
Stupid
people.
women.
Well, and Eslen, right? And now that they're gone, he can go on to his big success.
And he goes downstairs and we see Doris, poor Doris, getting in an ambulance. Thankfully, Doris gets some help.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go downstairs initially, and Tom has to kind of convince him that the press are down there and everything's a go, and he doesn't really believe him. He kind of doubts Tom until Tom says that Schofield will be there. Yeah. And I had to look up Schofield, and it turns out it's Paul Schofield, who was a very well-known actor, long time. He had a CBE, which is kind of like an OBE. Mm-hmm. So very well-known.
So he gets downstairs, goes in the police car.
Yeah. If you have a chance to watch this episode again, pay close attention to Harold's facial expressions from the door of the house to the door of the car.
Because it's, I'm okay?
Wait a minute,
no.
I'm not. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
No, I'm not. Maybe I am. Maybe not. It's really well done. Really well done.
So we have a dinner scene at the Barnabys, which is always a horror story. But Cully helped cook.
And Nico's there.
And Nico's there. And Joyce is all right. And Barnaby explains the disc.
And that Harold's confessed, but it was one of his last lucid moments. He won't be charged. Well, he won't have his day in court.
And Barnaby says, I can't believe this is all over theater.
I can't believe anybody would commit murder for sake of the theater.
And Cully and
Dad!
And they laugh. And the credits roll.
This episode is, with the exception of Eslen's death, is just not as notable and crazy and exciting as the previous two episodes. It's a good episode, but the two deaths are kind of, I don't know, they're not very well connected. We don't have a whole lot of corpses to choose from, and we've got our best corpse of the episode. It's got to be Agnes, because we don't even see Eslen after he's dead. He does have a fantabulous death, but we don't get to see him.
So I have a couple of problems with the episode too.
Okay.
The first one being, as we mentioned, if you're doing a performance in which there's a razor that slits somebody's throat, use a plastic razor.
Mm-hmm. It's inviting trouble.
I know I can juggle knives now and practice because I put tape on them.
Nico can juggle scones.
Yes. I also think that this motive, again, is a little difficult because essentially it's saying Harold was on edge and he wanted to have money to get a new theater. I understand that.
Yeah.
And he thought this was his way back to stardom. And when that was put in jeopardy, he didn't get upset. He got a crowbar.
And he must have been pretty coherent up to that point because Agnes was able to do business with him over a pretty long period of time for a pretty large number of pieces of art.
So this is the moment, like, again, like the first episode, oh, you caught us bonking outside. We're going to go on a murder spree.
So are we to assume then that Agnes must have told Harold that she was done? That she wasn't going to do it anymore?
One would assume that.
And that's what made him snap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, as we mentioned also, there's a low body count in this episode.
Yeah, it's a disappointing body count. The one death is great, but...
I would say Agnes's death was good. But
it's not as notable as the razor.
Like the razor death could have happened at minute 25, and then Kitty could have got knocked off, or Rosa could have got knocked off, or Tim or Avery, somebody in there. Like, imagine if Tim and Rosa were found together dead because they found the disc, and Tim said, "Oh, I know what this is. Let's blackmail him."
Yeah.
Like that would have, been much more Midsomer.
You're trying to find ways to kill more people.
I am. I am trying to find ways to kill. Which leads me back to another point of the episode is there's not a lot of likable people in this.
No, it's hard to... I think Eslen's death had to be shocking because otherwise you'd be like, meh, somebody killed the asshole.
So Avery, I like Avery. Makes good jokes. He's fun. Tim is...
He's okay,
cheating
except for
on
the
his
affair.
partner.
Yeah.
Kitty and Rosa just hate each other.
They're irredeemable.
Eslen's irredeemable. And almost to the point of Doris is so mousy, she's dislikable.
Yeah. Because she's clearly been in that position for a long time.
And she clearly had Ajax. She could have done the deed herself.
Oh, she cooked all of his meals for him.
Including the rhubarb cobbler, which...
had to be at least a week old.
We had a 20-minute conversation trying to figure out what day it was and what day the rhubarb cobbler was made, only to figure out that there was no way for us to figure this out.
No.
And that she must be serving him week-old cobbler.
Because he says, what's for pudding?
Maybe. He got ergot poisoning from the week-old cobbler.
No, he leaves before he eats it anyway.
Oh. Maybe that was why he was insane, but he left before he ate it.
Because he was hungry.
So, Maniacs, that is Death of a Hollow Man.
If you have any comments or ideas that we didn't think of, or
sequin jockstrap pictures of Paddington.
That's true. Or if you notice any other kind of interesting little things like camshafts on rafters, drop us a line, send us a voicemail. We would love to hear your thoughts. Our next episode will be season 1, episode 3, which is
Faithful Unto Death, which is a very...
it's a low body count, but it's a good one.
It's a low body count, but it's a good one. It's got Roger Allam in it, one of our favorite actors.
Yeah.
So. And reminder that our Twitter feed is at Midsomer Maniacs. And you can pick up this podcast at all the regular podcasting places. And...
give us a like, give us a comment, let us know what you think.
A like, a comment, and rate and review us on any podcast application that you use. Bye, Maniacs.
Bye, Maniacs.
Not Harold. What's his name? The killer.
Harold.
Harold. Okay. Harold